This is Marcus Whitney's audio universe.
Like, you gotta do the work. You gotta show up and just do the work.
What's up? What's up? Happy Monday. Showing up to do the work. Another episode of Marcus Whitney Live. Excited about today's episode because it is someone who I can definitely relate to the experience they've had this year. Coming into the year with a vision of something really, really important, that work that they wanted to do, and that work sort of being made even more important by the significance of this moment, and at the same time more difficult by the significance of this moment. So without further ado, let me introduce my friend and guest for today, Christy Pruitt-Haynes. Christy, how are you?
I'm all right. Doing pretty good. How are you?
Doing well. Let's jump right in. Just give the folks who are listening and watching a little bit of background on who you are.
Sure. So I am actually a Nashville native, which I know is very rare. So I'm proud of that fact. Born and raised here, graduated from the best high school, Hume Falk.
Oh.
And yes, got a blue night forever. So traveled around a bit for school and jobs, and ended up working in human resources and strategy. Also a lot of work in the field of diversity. So did that for more years than I care to admit. And then realized that there were a lot of issues that companies were having that could easily be solved by the people within those four walls. But for whatever reason, those companies typically chose to go and get consultants to bring in. So I said, well, let me go be one of those consultants and make a little money doing that. So I did that for a number of years and thoroughly enjoyed it. And fast forward to now, where I've started Our Truths, which really combines all of the experiences that I've had, both professionally and personally, and really creates what I hope will be a phenomenal organization that helps a lot of people.
So let's jump in. What is Our Truths?
So Our Truths is an organization. It's for, by, and about Black women. The goal is to inspire, enhance, and amplify the Black woman. So what that really means is there's several parts to the organization. The first is we have a lot of content that we put out, blogs, things of that nature. We have a podcast that's going to be launching soon that I'm really excited about. So that's to really speak directly to Black women all over who have that shared experience. The other part is the enhanced part. We have courses that we'll offer to Black women, which is one of the ways we've pivoted this year when things had to change a bit for us. So we'll talk about that more. And then the part I'm really most excited about is we are a speakers bureau and a publishing house, again, focusing on Black female talent. And I've been a professional speaker for a number of years and realized oftentimes I was the only person who looked like me on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And I started asking why that was. I'm one of those who truly believes ask why as often as you can. So I started asking why that was. And the answer I kept hearing from all of these meeting planners and conference organizers is we just don't know where to find Black women. And when I thought about it, a lot of us were guilty of this. We stay within our own little bubble. And whoever it is we've worked with in the past, and you keep those networks intact, which has some benefits to it, but also has some downsides when you're really looking to get a wide variety of voices. So I then started looking at speakers bureaus out there because I thought this can't be true. There have to be, I know, so many Black women who are phenomenal speakers on every topic you can imagine. And I saw there wasn't a speakers bureau that specialized in Black female talent. So I said, sounds like a need. Let's fill it.
Yeah.
So we started the Our Truth Speakers Bureau. We have some phenomenal speakers on our rosters who happen to be Black women. And that's what's really important. I needed people who were talented speakers, who were experts in their respective fields, but also could tell their stories and tell their truths from the perspective of a Black woman. And then the other side of that is our publishing house. Again, not everybody can speak, but everybody has a story to tell. So we wanted to have an opportunity to tell that in whatever way was going to work best. So we have a vanity publishing house where Black female authors can bring their manuscripts to us, and we have editors and graphic designers and typesetters and everything we would need to put together a beautiful book, get it out there, get it online, get it into our network of bookstores, and be able to tell their story in that way. So all of that really falls into that amplifying part where we're making sure our voice is heard, because for so many reasons the world really, really needs it right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to go next, which is
Yes.
You started this this entire initiative before the pandemic, before
Yes.
the murder of George Floyd, and there was definitely momentum around the need to elevate the voices of Black women, but that's been multiplied, obviously,
Yes,
and at the same time, I know this because I also do keynote speaking. The speaking industry has basically crumbled, right?
Yes.
Like
right before
our eyes, right?
Yes.
If you can't travel and you can't have a large gathering, that means you can't do keynote speaking, or at least you can't do it in the way that we are used to doing it, the way it had been designed, the way the money would flow, and all that kind of stuff. So, gosh, that feels like, your demand in one way has grown tremendously, and in another way your demand has shrunken. Like, can you just talk about what that experience has been like for you?
Absolutely. So, first speaking a little bit about how the demand has grown. The thing that shocked me most with everything that came after the murder of George Floyd and just that time and the time that we're still in, the thing that shocked me most is how surprised people were. There were so many people who kept saying, this can't happen. This isn't my America. How is this happening in 2020?
Mm-hmm.
And for so many people were saying, we knew this has been happening all along. This isn't new. But the fact that so many people were surprised really spoke to why we have to get our stories out there, why we have to be on these stages. So it did create this surge of need. At the same time, everyone is literally stuck in their house. So I'm not a dancer, but if I were, I would just be doing these constant pivots around and around, like doing this pirouette or something, because that's what I had to do. So it was figuring out, how do we still tell the stories, get the information out there, highlight these phenomenal speakers that's very needed, but do so in a way that we remain safe. And as you said, the speakers industry it doesn't know what to do. I reached out to a great friend who works for the NSA, the National Speakers Association, thinking, you're the industry leader, you're going to have some direction. And he's like, Christy, I'll be honest, I don't know. We don't even know how to monetize all of these online events. Like, literally the industry is on its head right now. So we started doing what we could. We started doing a lot of Instagram lives. We started doing Zooms, kind of the things that everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
And now organizations have gotten more used to the idea of having online trainings. So we now have our speakers that are out there doing some different online training and still getting in front of audiences in that way. So we've worked with several organizations, both here in Nashville and outside, where we're doing what we're doing right now. I think we all have Zoom fatigue, but it is what it is. It has not been what I thought it would be, because I had these visions of, we're going to have our speakers in front of 5,000 people and it's going to be great, and it's not that. So we've pivoted, and we still have them out there in ways, and we found other ways for our speakers to share their content. So we have speakers now who are creating courses that they can send out, and we can now market those to organizations, because again, it's all about the pivot right now. It's all about, how do you still share the information, but do so in a way that 2020 allows us to do.
Right. And can you just talk about the role that you've had to play with the women that you represent specifically, right? You know what I mean? Because whenever when you take on the role of running a speakers bureau or being a publisher, you're like both, not even both. You're a guide, you're like the number one cheerleader. In some ways, you're a bit of a therapist. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
you're all the things.
Yeah, right. You're all of those things. And so, how has that been how is that relationship morphed and evolved for you in terms of, the way that you're engaging with, like, are they coming to you looking for more guidance? Are they providing you with ideas? I'm really interested in that dynamic.
Yeah. Um, Initially, it was just a lot of questions. It was, okay, Christy, now what? And I'll be honest, that felt like a tremendous boulder,
I bet.
sitting on my head, because I didn't have answers at first, and I'm one of those, I'm very honest. If I don't know, I'll say, I don't know. So I said to all of our speakers that, give me a minute. Let me figure some things out. Let me reach out to other people in the industry. Let me do some of this homework for you. Because right now, I'll be honest, I don't know what this looks like. And the plan for our truce, we launched this year, and the plan was to launch with our speakers bureau front and center.
Hmm.
So we have other things that we do, but that was going to be sort of our hallmark offering. And clearly, being a speakers bureau, a new speakers bureau that doesn't look like any other speakers bureau out there in this time, just wasn't going to work for us in the traditional sense. So I then had to get creative and really rely on a lot of my network and my relationships that I already had to reach out to organizations and say, hey, look, here's what we had planned. That's not happening.
Okay.
You have a whole bunch of employees who are sitting at home and they need people to interact with. They need content. Let's find ways to partner up so we can still meet those needs. And then it was just a lot of hand holding, because when you have someone who's, and I'm sure, as you know, speaking on a stage, when you have people in front of you and you can kind of go off of that energy of the audience, it is so different than doing it in front of a computer screen. So as if you are a trained speaker, pivoting your career in that way feels counterintuitive. Like, it just, like, this is not
It's
what you're
hard.
supposed to be doing.
It's
Yes,
hard.
it
I mean,
is.
you have to build an entirely new skill set, right? I mean,
Yes.
you're not just speaking, you're producing a multimedia production,
Hmm.
right? And
Yes, it is.
that's
Absolutely. That's
and here's the
different
thing,
than,
not only is it a different skill set, it requires different equipment. Like
yes.
the bar is being raised on what is professional in terms of
Hmm.
virtual presentations, right? And
Yes,
so it really has, it's moved the bar, it's changed what the expectations are, and that's a difficult thing.
it is. Like, I did a class on Canva for some of our speakers,
Yeah.
just to show, here's one way you can make a beautiful presentation, and then here's how you can record over it. And I gathered up lists of different equipment. Here's the microphones that are great. Right now, my favorite mic is out of stock. You literally can't find it anywhere
Right,
because
right.
everybody's doing this.
Exactly.
But I had to do those things, and those are things, honestly, I never planned on it. I thought, I'm going to go out, I'm going to find all these speaking jobs, I'm going to coach up our speakers to make sure they're ready, and then we're going to send them out into the world. I am not a tech savvy person, so I had to really kind of skill up so I in turn could skill them up,
Great.
because that's part of my role. So it's been a learning opportunity for all of us. So if you need me to create a slide deck for you, I can do it in my sleep. I am ready.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes.
So I am interested, though, that I know that the speaking world is not, it's just not operating. That much I know.
Right.
It's really not operating. But I am interested in, the demand for Black women voices. I mean, that seems to
Yes.
be that seems to be in a place where it's never been in the history of this
All-time
country,
high.
right? Like all-time high in America's
Yes.
history. 2020 is the year
Mhm.
America is most understands it needs to hear from Black women. So,
Yes.
tell me about, like, as someone who saw that market opportunity. I don't mean to say that everything I just said is a market opportunity. I just mean you
But
launched a business
the
around it.
reality is, it is.
Yeah, you launched a
At the end of
business
the day, we
around
want to monetize this.
That's right. That's right. As
Yeah.
someone who saw that before all of this sort of happened,
Mhm.
how is it, even though it isn't coming from the speaking, are you getting other forms of inbound requests for help,
Yes.
for assistance, for consulting?
Yes, absolutely. So, and the first thing that we did is, when all of this happened, so kind of the combination of the pandemic with the renewed reality of the Black Lives Matter movement and
Yep.
everything that came of that.
Yep.
So the first thing I did was literally took a time out and kind of pulled in my network and said, first, what do you need? How are you feeling?
Nice.
How are you operating?
Yep.
Because one thing that I know personally and have experienced personally, and it's something that happens to Black women frequently, we are praised for our strength, right?
Yeah.
You know, everyone says, oh, Black women, you can handle it. We
Yeah.
can count on you.
Yeah.
We know you're going to show up at the polls and you're going to vote for what's best for everybody.
Sure.
And we know you can handle all of this. But I knew we needed a moment to first make sure we were okay.
Mm-hmm.
So once we did that and just kind of came together and sort of had this collective hug, is almost what it felt like. It was then, okay, now how do we go out and help everyone else? So one of the first things we did is we came up with a guide for allies. Here's some things you can do to help. Here's some things you need to stop doing. Stop asking us to solve the problems we didn't create. You know, come to us with a list of, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and then ask for our input as opposed to handing me a white sheet of paper and telling me to solve racism. Because clearly, if I had that power, it would have been done a long time ago. So we created a resources for allies, and we sent those out to a lot of the companies that we worked with, both as either that I'd worked with as a consultant or that we talked to about speaking engagements, that sort of thing. And it created the conversation and gave us another entry point into their worlds. From that, we've had several of our speakers now who have done sessions within the companies about anti-racism, about being an ally, about when you need to just give me a moment to let me feel my feelings and not ask me all these questions. Because if you feel this at a 7, you have to know I feel it at a 43,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that kind of thing. So it has created those moments. And again, that's where, you know, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. It's essential, but sometimes it gets to be too much. But in this moment, it did help us because it was a way to get information out. So we started doing Instagram lives about here's what's going on, here's how we're feeling, here's how you can help, here's some resources, here's things you need to read, that sort of thing. And it gave us another entry into that world that we couldn't do by standing on a stage.
So when you were talking about Black women being strong, let me tell you where I thought you were going to go. Because that's true. Where I thought you were going to go was the people ask Black women to do stuff for free.
Oh, goodness.
That's where I thought you were going to go.
So constantly, I posted something recently on Instagram, and it said, you know, I don't know who needs to hear this, but pay Black women.
Yeah.
You know, pay Black women speakers in particular. My favorite T-shirt that I have, and I should have worn it today, but it says, "You can pick my brain once the invoice is paid." Because there were my phone rang off the hook, both from professional and personal contacts. What can I do? How can I help? I was like, well, so here's an idea. Maybe you can pay me to come in and help you, you know, create some programs or whatever that may be.
Right.
So that is a huge thing. You know, it's funny, us recording this week, August 13th is National Black Women's Pay Equality Day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because it is August 13th of 2020 that it takes the average Black woman to earn what the average white man earned from January 1st through December 31st of 2019. So it took us an additional 8 months. When you talk about pay disparities, it takes us 8 months longer to earn what they did. And that's just in traditional kind of 9-to-5 employment. When you look at things like consulting and speaking and work in the arts, where there isn't a defined pay rate, it's so much worse. And I have turned down a number of panels and speaking opportunities where there was no budget. And I said, you know, and there's some organizations, particularly some nonprofits, I'm going to do those things because I know what they're doing and I know what their finances actually look like. But if you are a Fortune 100 company, you can't tell me you don't have a budget for something. because I know that
You
is not
worked
the case.
there.
Yes, exactly. I've been there. I've done that. I know what those numbers look like. So there's a difference in not having a budget and not wanting to put my name on that budget.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. And what's interesting, one of the things I asked all of our speakers when they were coming on board is, what are the things that you want most from a bureau? And the number one answer they gave was assistance in negotiating fair speakers rates, because people in general just don't come to them with a fair offer.
Yep. Yep. That makes a ton of sense, and it's sad.
Yes.
It makes a ton of sense.
Very sad.
But it's sad. It's sad.
Yes.
Yeah, because when I asked you about the demand, and your response was that you put out content, right? And you were helping people to process. To me, it's like, here we go again.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, here we go again.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And that's what it was. It was we know you didn't create the problem, but you always fix it every other time. So can you do it for us once again? And it's exhausting. And what's so interesting, I always use the word interesting when I don't know the right word to use. So what is so interesting about it is, we are both expected to kind of shoulder all of this responsibility, for lack of a better word, but do it without ever showing any emotion about it. Because the moment we react, then we are labeled as angry, we are labeled as emotional, we are labeled as problematic, we are all of these things. And, when I say it is such a luxury that I wish I had, to be able to just go and cry in public.
Right.
Because if I do it, it gets, it's turned around completely. So I don't get to do that.
Right.
I have to cover that up. And that's part of what Our Truths does, quite honestly, is give Black women a safe place, because we also have an online network that Black women can come and be a part of. And it gives them a safe place to have those moments of vulnerability, because we don't have the luxury of being able to have those publicly, because it gets villainized and it gets turned around, and I told you a woman couldn't handle this. Look how emotional she is. That's what happens. So this is the safe place where all of those conversations and things can occur.
Can you talk a little bit about the book publishing aspect of your business? Yes. Because what has turned out to be a fairly big surprise, there are all these like economic surprises that the pandemic has, keeps bringing us. And one of them is that book sales are still pretty good. Yeah.
Well, and I think right now I've said it quite often for myself, I feel like I've watched all of TV.
Right.
There's nothing else I can watch.
That's right.
I've literally gone through every TV show and binged watched them all over the last 6 months. So books are what's left. And again, we didn't see this time coming. So it's one of those serendipitous kind of moments.
Right.
It's the silver lining and everybody being at home. But it has created a resurgence of people having an interest in books. So we have so many people who, they're not at the level of being ready for Random House or some of those larger publishings.
Totally.
But they still have a valid story to tell. They still have information to share. They still have pieces of them that they need to get out there. But most people wouldn't even know where to begin. It's like, okay, I've written all this down. Now what?
Right.
So we are that now what? So women come to us in one of the books, there are a couple I'm really excited about right now. We have one about someone who's been adopted and kind of her journey of looking back and connecting with her birth family and finding lots of siblings and things of that nature. So it's a story and telling it from the perspective of a Black woman. So it's an interesting story, but she didn't know where to go with it. So we're literally kind of walking through the process of getting it edited and, doing that deep kind of developmental editing to make sure it is a quality product, making sure it looks the way you want it to look, making sure that when you look at that cover, it makes you want to pick it up and open the book up. And the thing that I'm really excited about is everyone touching this book along the process is a Black woman.
Oh, that's amazing.
Our editors are Black women. And
wow.
That was honestly the hardest part about the publishing aspect, because the publishing industry in general is about 80% white. So finding experienced editors, finding experienced designers who were Black women probably took honestly more time than any other part of this organization.
I don't
But
doubt
it
that.
was intentional and it was worth it.
I don't doubt that one bit. Isn't it interesting,
Yes.
like when you really get into the process of trying to do something with the level of intentionality that you're doing it, and you realized how outsized the
Yes.
exclusion is. It's it's the kind of thing that just like blows your mind, right? You're like, hold on, we all read books, we all write
Why-
books. How the
Yes.
heck is like the industry
Is this the
so
reality?
so skewed in this way? And then
Yes.
you think about the implications of something like that, right? Which is like, books define, they don't do it exclusively, but they are such a huge part of defining culture, right?
Yes. Yes.
And the way that they are
And-
produced is part of how they are consumed. It's a big part of how
Yes.
they're consumed. It's not like what the author does is exactly what you get,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
There's a lot of work in between there. As you said, the book cover, the editing process. The editing process really shapes.
That's the book you get.
That's the book you
And
get. Yes.
The differences between what was written originally versus what you consume, that's from that editor.
Yes.
So and
Yes.
that position more than any other, I say we have to have women. We have to have Black women who can do this. And while it was frustrating, honestly, how difficult it was to find everyone, it also reinforced the need.
Right.
The fact that there were so few, and just as you said, it shapes the story, it shapes what people consume as part of culture. The fact that I had such a hard time finding those individuals reinforced why I had to do it. Because, we need the stories told in our way, from our perspective, without it being whitewashed or, and kind of glossed over and changed from the intent.
So, I have to just ask, is this your first entrepreneurial venture?
Outside of working for myself, like I've done consulting
Yeah,
myself,
yeah.
just of me, but
But like
yes, on a
building
larger-
something.
Absolutely, yes.
This is a pretty
this
big
the first-
undertaking.
It is, and it wasn't supposed to be initially. I'll be honest. My first thought for all of this was one book. I wanted to put out one book
Yeah.
that was a collection of stories from Black women from their perspective. But as I started talking and looking around and seeing these needs, it just emerged that if I'm not going to meet them who he is, and even if parts of what I do aren't as big and grandiose as what other people could do, it sets a foundation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's right.
and it's a start. So yeah, no, it's big. I've lost a lot of hours of sleep, but I was happy to lose them because this is bigger than me.
Yeah.
So I
For
needed
sure.
to do it.
For sure. Yeah, it definitely is. And people don't necessarily think about all of the all the inner workings of something, this difficult. What you're doing
Yes.
is a very people-based business.
Yes.
Not just in terms of
Yes.
who you're serving, but like who you need to help you serve.
Yes,
people.
I have to have that. I have to have a crew around me.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I am doing exactly what I often coach entrepreneurs not to do, and kind of having this wide, so this is one of those moments for everyone I've ever coached. This is a do what I say, not what I do moment. And that's just how it is sometimes. But again, speakers are wonderful, but some people don't consume information that way.
Yeah.
And books are wonderful, but some people don't consume information. So it needed to be that 360 approach. So I said, well, if we're going to do it, let's just jump right in and do it. And it'll work.
Well, I when you told me what you were doing and then I got a chance to look at the website, I was like, we got to have you on because, you're exactly the kind of person I want to have on the show. And quite frankly, like at this phase, it's like, I know this is going to be super successful. And so I want to be on record.
Yes. I was one of the first.
Yeah.
Back when it was, Christy working out of her living room.
That's right.
I was there.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I know that this is, I basically never use this word, but this feels like, an ordained idea. You know, this feels
Thank
like
you.
an idea that is, you know, no one can look at this and say it's not absolutely time for this. No one.
Exactly. And that's how it felt to me when, as I started coming up with it and talking to other people, it felt needed. And it felt like no one has said, oh no, this makes no sense. This isn't what we need to do.
Right.
You know, no one can say that. And if they can, then to me, that just speaks to why we need to do it even more.
Right.
Because they clearly, you know, have kind of stuck their head in the sand to some realities.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for making time sharing sort of, you know, transparently where you are. This is a really difficult time for everyone out here.
Yes.
You know, 32% off the GDP is nothing to sneeze at. And, you know, but you're hustling and you're making it work.
I am.
Which
Thank
is awesome.
You so much.
Everybody out there, y'all follow Christy, ourtruths.com, on Instagram, Our Truths Online, also on Twitter, Our Truths Online. Go follow, support. Again, the book, Create and Orchestrate, Amazon #1 bestseller. Go grab it if you haven't already. The podcast, Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe, everywhere that you subscribe to and listen to podcasts. And you can follow me online at Marcus Whitney. And that's it. I will see y'all back here tomorrow. Until then, let's build the new normal, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe.